Okay, hi guys. This is Mia and Danny from groupcoaching.com. And after almost of 1 hour of our audio problems on Facebook Live, we decided to do this on Zoom. And Danny, he is a founder and head coach at groupcoaching.com. And we just recently had a workshop in New York. And he was one of our head coaches. And he was talking about the goals and what do you need to start putting your ideas into actionable steps. So, hey, Danny, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, I'm ready to get going. I think we've been practicing for a while, so
I know. Hey, it's Saturday. I know. So let's try to, do this quick and still give all the valuable information that you can. So tell
let's
me,
do
tell
it.
me a little about you and your business, how you got started, and
Well, I have been a photographer for a long time, since college, and um, after a series of considerations, found coaching to be a really interesting career, and I went back to school to study how to become a coach as well as um, getting certified in positive psychology. So, having done that, I'm now working with a variety of people to help them with their careers, and it really satisfies an interest in psychology that I've had for years, even as a photographer, um, which I really incorporated into a lot of my work.
okay, nice. So, can you tell me a little more about like your coaching business and what type of programs you have and what people can expect when they start working with you? And
Yeah, for sure. So, people usually start with a particular goal when they contact me, and it's something like a resume or an interview prep or um, how am I going to get my next job? And that's basically the tip of the iceberg. So, what I do is I help people identify what's kind of at the base of the iceberg. So, what's really important to them and what is driving all of these decisions that they want to make, that's going to move them toward some significant and positive change in their life. And as we go through the process, we uncover, what's important and what the real goals are for their life. And I know that, in the last, when we had our live coaching with Crystal and Belinda as well, I spoke a little bit about what, the importance of getting to the bottom of what the real goal is, and how if you have strong awareness of the why behind your goal, it's a much higher chance of you actually achieving the goal. And so that's what I help people do. And then once people have that really solid understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, then I help them go through the steps of actually taking action on those goals and making sure that there's accountability built in. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about what's involved in proper goal setting.
so, yeah, actually, that was going to be my question. Like, what are actually some of those strategies, right, that you're using? Do you use any tools to help you with that, or what's like a usual process of starting, even like with a simple goal, right?
Yeah, so assuming that we've gotten to a point where the person I'm working with really knows why they're doing what they're doing. Um, and to be honest, it's pretty rare that I get people who are like really clear on exactly what they need to do, like why they need to do it. Um, so part of the conversation of achieving the goal is understanding why they need to achieve it. So raising the necessity of achieving the goal is really important. And I do that through, a lot of coaching tools, and it would probably take way too long to explain, all of the stuff behind the scenes of the way that people's brains work and everything. But I do offer, certain exercises that people can do at home. So there's quite a bit of homework that takes place, which is they're tools to help make the conversation a little richer. But ultimately, coaching is a way of helping people build awareness, which is like one, and take appropriate action, which is two. So those two things are the main sort of tools of coaching.
Mm-hmm. And where do you see that the people like fail the most when like trying to achieve their goals?
Well, when it comes to resolutions, which is big, especially this time of year, resolutions really aren't goals. They're just like kind of nice, vague ideas. And what we know from research is that vague goals, or these kinds of do your best type of goals, like, oh, I'm going to try my best to, lose weight this year, whatever it is. Not only do they not get achieved, only 8% of people who set resolutions achieve them, which is crazy. Not only do they not get achieved, but they're actually detrimental. Because if you've been doing this sort of do your best style of goal setting for a long time, it makes you lose trust in yourself, essentially. It lowers your self-efficacy. Some people call it self-confidence or self-esteem, but self-efficacy is really the thing to focus on here, because it's the belief that when you have an intention, that it's going to have a positive outcome. And if you've been setting these vague goals for a long time and not meeting them, then your perception of your ability to actually achieve the things that you want to achieve is very low.
Yeah.
So, so it's really important to work on setting really specific goals, SMART goals, and what I call SMART plus goals, which takes it to an even higher level to make sure that they actually do get followed through.
Yeah. And I guess, when the accountability, right? So when you're working with somebody, it's very easy, even if you maybe don't have the necessary knowledge on how to like set up those goals, but really like working with a coach, right? Who's going to really take you through that process. And then you also mentioned like where you have that accountability, right? So to have somebody like on top of you to make sure, okay, what is the next step? Have you done it? And I feel that with those things, the success of reaching your goals, it's much bigger, much higher than if you were just to do it on your own. So
yeah, for sure. Having an accountability partner is big, and it doesn't have to be a coach. It can be anybody who is truly invested in your success. So it can be a friend or a parent or a loved one or a colleague or a boss or anything. The problem is that a lot of times accountability partners aren't necessarily doing it to really support you from a selfless place. Sometimes people have opinions. It's natural. People have opinions and they have a particular style. So the benefit of working with a coach is that there's training behind the way that they hold you accountable. It's about helping you be accountable to your own goals in a way that serves you, that's actually beneficial to you, that comes from you. Not everybody has the same way of benefiting from accountability. Some people want to be left alone to their own devices, and that's how they work best. And some people need like constant reminders. So I've had clients who are like, I got this, like I'll talk to you next week. And I'm like, okay, perfect. We'll talk about it next week. And that level of accountability of checking in once a week is sufficient. And I've had other clients who are like, I need you to text me every day. So that's fine too.
Okay, yeah, well, everybody has their own ways on work, but as long as you get to that end result, and when you see that what you do, like the steps and the tools and techniques that actually help people reach the goals, I guess that's ultimately what matters, right, in the end.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about what works for you and having the awareness of what works for you. And a lot of people don't necessarily have that awareness. So it's to build the awareness of what is important to you, what are the things that actually help you succeed, both from your own personality and also what research says, and kind of finding where those things meet, and setting up structures that serve you in that way.
Yeah. Okay, good. So can you speak a little about I guess that whole process and the roadmap, right, that one can expect when they start working on their goals. How does that look like?
Well, I'm trying to find. I have this worksheet here, and I, showed it at that live meeting. You can download this on my website. By the way, it's Smart Plus Goals. So you can download it on my website for free, and it shows you the different categories of ways in which you can increase the probability of achieving your goal. So I can walk you through those if that makes sense pretty quickly.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So first of all, specificity. You want to be really specific about your goal. If it's a vague goal, then your brain isn't fully understanding what it is and how it can be achieved, right? So the more specific you are, the more realistic it is that you can understand and get through it. Pretty straightforward, right? And there's a lot of research to explain why specificity makes sense for the human brain. The number 2 on here is the reason why I want this goal to succeed. So why are you doing this in the first place? And sometimes that can be a process unto itself. So if you don't know, then you can kind of break that part out and take as much time as you need to understand what's important about this goal. Why are you doing it? And often you can go through a process of like 5 whys, for example, of asking what's important about this. Okay, and why is that important? And why is that important? And why is that important? So you really get to the root cause. And if you really understand it, it comes from like a very intrinsically motivated place. Action steps, so you actually plan it out. You have like implementation intentions plainly written out. So when X happens, I'm going to do Y, both in terms of positive expectations and negative expectations. Planning for failure is a big part of succeeding in your goals. So if I'm at a party, so let's say your goal is to lose a certain amount of weight by a certain time, and then you're like, well, okay, if I'm at a party and I'm tempted to eat a donut, here's how I'm going to handle that situation, right? You prepare yourself, and that builds self-efficacy because you go into the situation, you encounter the problem that you planned for, and you deal with it as expected. And so at the end, you're like, hey, I planned for this and it happened and I knew how to deal with it. And that feels amazing. That's a way of rewarding yourself. So measurements are very important. You want to know how you're tracking progress. So what does success actually look like? What's the metric? And if you don't have a quantifiable metric, because it's more of a quantitative, the other way around, sorry, if it's not a quantitative thing and you want a qualitative measurement, you can do something like, on a scale of 0 to 10, how am I feeling about this right now? So if it's like a feeling type of goal, and it isn't about specific numbers, you can come up with your own metric for it, how to measure it. Celebrating your wins is really important too. You want to make sure that you're teaching your brain that when you succeed at something, that's a good thing. So you reward yourself, proportionately speaking, right? So, if you send the email that you want, you have a piece of chocolate, and that signals to your brain, oh, this is good. Okay. So you're kind of training yourself. Like I have a puppy, and you kind of train the puppy in the same way. And as kind of silly as it sounds, our brains kind of work the same way.
Yeah.
The emotional core of our brains have the same chemicals. So pitfall plans, like I said, planning for failure, using primers, so things in your environment, unconsciously or consciously, that are going to help you remember the importance of doing this goal. And that can, there's a whole range of these kinds of things. We could spend a lot of time talking about each one of these, but I'm going through pretty quickly. Making sure that it's an approach goal. So the difference between an avoidance goal and an approach goal is really important. So I don't want to avoid, or I don't want to be overwhelmed by my emails. That's not a goal. You have to flip it toward an approach goal, which would be, I'm going to chunk out a certain amount of time per day to answer my emails. So it's active. It's turning it into a positive, affirmative thing. And that takes less energy. Not only does it take less energy than an avoidance goal, but it actually gives you energy. It makes you feel good. it makes you like have, excitement.
Yeah. And you can actually measure that result better, right? Versus
Totally.
like the avoidance. So, and you do want to measure your goals, right? Like when you achieve it, that it's very clear to you, okay, I have done it. You can check it out and you move on to the next one. So,
Yeah, and that's important for the action steps, right? So for each action, there should be a way to measure whether that action is successful. And if it's too big, then it's probably too big an action, and it has to be broken down. So, for example, if the action is like make a website, that's probably too big of a and vague of a goal, and it's hard to measure other than like the website's done. And that takes way too long. It's going to lead to avoidance and procrastination. So instead of, I'm going to make a website, you think, okay, today I'm going to write the first paragraph of my bio, and I'm going to do that by 3 p.m., kind of thing. So you can have ways of measuring and rewarding yourself so that it builds on itself.
mm,
Um, and of course accountability, which we touched on. Think of somebody who is going to help you do that, and don't underestimate it. Especially if you're a solopreneur, it can be really tough to get that accountability, and you're really missing out on that sense of community, that sense of other people are invested in this, and I have to get this done because there's a broader impact. And when you connect to that, the relationships, the community, we are wired from our primitive cave people brains to respond very strongly to that kind of stimulus.
mm,
And lastly, on here is you can make a contract for yourself. You can kind of write out a contract and say, I'm committing to doing the following, and then you sign it. You can like put it up on your wall. It's a way of making sure that you are putting it out there in the world. It can be kind of a vulnerable thing, especially if it's a challenging goal. It should be a challenging goal with lots of steps. But it's a vulnerable thing because you put it out there in the world and you're like, oh my God, what if I fail? What if I'm judged? These kinds of judgmental voices in your head. And if you can force yourself to do that and make it public, get that accountability, it'll help you succeed, especially if you're breaking it down because you have those relationships. There's a lot more to that also because the expectations and the judgment, and there's a lot we could talk about in terms of how to work with your judgmental voice and that sort of thing.
yeah. Okay.
So that's a lot, but anyway.
It is a lot, and I know like once I posted on Facebook, you can post a link, or I can post a link, and they can actually go and look at this template, and then I think it's going to make much more sense, when they go like step by step and when they have it in front of them. But
absolutely.
yeah.
And if there's any questions, to post, I'm happy to respond to anything.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks. So, can you tell me like when, because like I hear like a lot of people, right, in whatever stages they are, right? I mean, everybody has their own problems, right? Whether it's growing the business, whether it's specific items on starting a business, or questions, or some insecurities. Like personally for you, what were some of the challenges that you had like starting your business, and how did you go about them?
I mean, I've dealt with the same challenges that everybody has, and just having to work through this. Fortunately, interestingly, the career change that I had from photojournalist to coach involved going through coaching training and through positive psychology training and resilience training. So I was sort of supported by the change in and of itself, which was really kind of nice because when I was having all of these conflicts, I was dealing with them in the class. I was dealing with them with the material I was reading. So, which thank goodness for that, right? But that's not always the case. You may not be in a situation that gives you that immediate feedback. So getting that feedback is huge. You can find it in many different ways. but a lot of different support systems, meetups, people that you can really trust, the same people who you would trust to be your accountability partners,
Yeah.
can help you with that. So I didn't get very specific, but for me, learning about marketing and business is always a challenge because it's not what I studied in school, and I'm having to teach that all to myself. So it's a lot of dedicating time to practicing, to not being a perfectionist, to putting things out there, to promoting things, and sometimes they don't go well, and sometimes they do, and so learning from the process.
Yeah.
For example, trying a Facebook Live that isn't working and having to change gears, but hey, we're learning from the experience, right? And that's what's important.
Well, I don't know what I learned from that experience, to be honest.
I kind of learned that Facebook Live isn't very reliable, but
okay, I knew that for a while, so that's definitely not something new. But yeah. Okay, so can you also tell me, like, I know we're running out of time, so I'm just like trying to wrap up.
Okay.
But what are some of the resources that you have found in the past that have been like really useful to you, either personally or in your business, like either any books or trainings or anything like that that you can point people to as a reference?
So one of the foundations, I think, of all of this kind of internal work is this concept of growth mindset. And you can read a book about growth mindset. It's by Carol Dweck. And you can also watch her TED Talk if you don't want to read the whole book. You get the summary version. And it really helps you to start thinking along the kind of learner path as opposed to that judgmental path. And if you have that down, everything else becomes a little bit easier, because we're always battling with ourselves as our own worst critic. And how do you actually manage that? What's the science of managing that? So I would highly recommend that. There's a book called Quiet Leadership that I like, by David Rock. He's a brilliant researcher, and this is a very practical book that will help you have better conversations, become a better listener. So if you're a manager or a leader of other people, or even of yourself, it can be useful for pretty much anyone. So highly recommend that. Resilience, actually, I have this book here, actually. That's a very good book. The Resilience Factor by, can you read there? There it is. Karen Rivich and Andrew Chate. So PhDs. So this is the science of resilience. I'm actually teaching a course on that. I'm doing a free course on resilience through my meetup called Professionals in Career Transition. It's 16 modules. The program's called Bounce Back Better. And it's a lot of this resilience building stuff, which includes growth mindset, emotional intelligence, vitality, and all the kinds of mental, emotional, physical, and social/spiritual ways in which you can build your resilience, your mental toughness, so that whatever comes your way, you can deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where can we find details about that?
Oh, I'll post a link, and it's, if you go to Meetup and type in Professionals in Career Transition, it'll come right up, and or you can, send me a message.
Yeah, and I know right now you're running a special offer. I believe it's for $5. So
you know what? It's the same one, and I've decided to offer it for free because I think that if I'm going to do this program cheap, I'm just going to do it for free. And, at some point when I start offering it to companies, it's going to be for like $5,000, and there's no reason to, charge $5 for it.
Yeah.
So it's free for now.
All right, great. So yeah, I am going to post this in Facebook, and then if you can just provide like all of your links and
Sure.
and any of your recommendations, so that folks know, where they can reach you, where they can get this free course on resilience. I'm definitely going to be signing up for it as well. So, so okay. Anything else, Danny?
Thank you so much. If you're listening, my email is danny@groupcoaching.com. Groupcoaching.com is my website. There's some free resources on there that you can get. There's some training videos. There are worksheets such as this one and several others, and some blog posts and that sort of thing. And I also have a 30-minute free consultation if you want to get on the phone and ask questions.
All right, sounds good. And we're actually just finalizing also like our agenda and the details for our February workshop. And I know Kate is working with you on the details. So
it's going to be awesome.
Likely you will be joining us. So that's exciting to hear more and actually help out people that are going to be signing up to grow their businesses. So
absolutely. It's going to be great. Looking forward to it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Danny. Thanks for joining, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Mia. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.